we did a little calculation. In California, we have what's called ADA, average daily attendance. Essentially, the government gives us, let's say for easy math, $100 a day for when students attend, because that $100 goes for programs that they're in and helps pay for their different things they're involved in. So because those kids attended school 7.34 more days, we captured $354,000. But you have to remember that's only for a third of our kids. So if you multiply that by 3, remember we have about 1,800 kids in our program.
Yep.
Well, that's now over $1 million extra that we captured of average daily attendance fund. So if you're a district leader listening, or someone who interfaces with district leaders, especially your chief business official, that's that type of that side of the house, then this is really what makes their ears perk up, because the program pays for itself.
That was Peter Whitmore, a dynamic leader in educational technology and innovation. With over 2 decades of experience in education, Peter has worn many hats, from teacher and instructional coach to school and district administrator and director of professional services. Peter has provided support and professional development for over 150 districts across the United States, partnering with organizations like Illuminate Education and IO Education. Peter is here today to walk us through his esports implementation journey and the incredible outcomes he and his team have achieved with the students and community of Moreno Valley. Thank you, Peter, for joining us today on Educator Spotlight.
Having me on, Sam. This is fun.
Excellent. Med, I want to start by saying, I reached out to you because of the data that I saw from 2023 that was passed on to me about some of the outcomes that you had with Moreno Valley. And I really appreciate you for coming on, because as someone who works with a lot of teachers and works with a lot of schools, from a coaching point of view, it's not always my place to give advice or give, outcomes that I haven't been part of in the actual classroom. So I really appreciate you coming along. And that's really where I wanted to start is, for people listening, can you give us an overview of the Moreno Valley District Esports program, and how did it get started?
Sure thing. So yeah, we think in Moreno Valley that we've really found the golden key to student engagement. And it's not just for Moreno Valley, it's anybody who wants to undertake scholastic esports. They're going to be not even surprised, but rewarded with the outcomes that their students start showing, even in year 1. So the way our program in Moreno Valley, we are a suburban district in Southern California, about 32,000 students. We have 71% Hispanic, 82% free and reduced lunch, meaning these are students who are socioeconomically disadvantaged. About 12% African American, and then the rest of the students are mixed. And we have 36 total schools, and we have esports programs at 34 of them. We have 2 elementary schools that are holdouts because they're still looking for a coach. Now, how did we get to that? We didn't start there, of course, right off the bat. My colleague, Josh Combs, who was unable to be here today, he learned of scholastic esports at a tech conference in 2019 or so, and brought it back to the district. And the district said, well, that's interesting. Let's start a steering committee. And they did, and then COVID hit. So that was it. It was put on hold until we could get our bearings and figure out what we're going to do with distance learning and so on and so forth. About that time, I got hired, and it was not to do esports. It was to just be sort of a general practitioner in the educational technology department. We call it technology, innovation, and assessment. But soon after I got hired, the directors came to me and said, hey, do you want to start a district esports program? And I said, sure. What's that? And didn't really have a clue until I poked around a bit. I'm like, oh, I get it. It's gaming in schools. And then some schema I could attach to. My brother-in-law works at Riot Games, so I have esports in my family, gaming in my family. So right away I connected with Josh, who while I'm more on the educational side, he's definitely more on the tech side. We cross over a bit, but it's a nice yin and yang that we've begun together. But the two of us connected with NASEF, Network of Academic and Scholastic Esports Federations. That would be my number one pieces of homework for schools and or districts to start. is by joining NASEF. It's free. They're a nonprofit, and they have all of the international pieces of coaching and resources and gameplay that it gets you started, from soup to nuts, how to start a club, to now, because I wrote a guidebook for them. Now it's from the district perspective too. And I'll share that with you, Sam, so you can add it to your show notes or whatever. So yeah, we worked with them, and we developed basically we imagined what our program should look like when it was fully realized 3 years down the road. Like, what would we want going on in the district? And we decided we wanted an internal league. We wanted to create healthy rivalries across our schools, middle schools and high schools to start. And we came up with 3 seasons: fall, winter, spring. And then we decided, okay, what about games? How do we choose games? And we contacted our county office to see, well, are there any guidelines that the county, they must know more about esports than we do, but they were just getting started. They said, well, we don't have any guidelines. So I wrote them. And Josh and I are like, how about this? So we came up with guidelines, and we shared them with the county, and then they shared them out to other districts around the county. Was basically, we are very conservative. We started really conservative with the idea that we never wanted anybody walking into our superintendent's office and with a complaint that could get our entire program shut down. So we didn't allow any first-person shooters for the first 3 years, 2.5 really. This is our 3rd year we're in, and we finally introduced Overwatch 2 as and we have scholastic reasons for it. It's one of the top 5 scholarship earning games around the world. So that's a reason why we should offer to our kids. We'd be doing a disservice if we didn't. So those types of thought processes are how we built our program, really trying to really pressure test it before instigating, certain pieces to make sure that it fits our mission and vision, which again is what we created from day one. And we learned to say no to a lot of really great ideas along the way, because that's how we stayed on track to getting programs, like I said, in 34 of 36 schools. So that's how the program got started in year 1. We focused mainly on the secondary schools, and have since folded in elementary schools, and we've started an all-girls league, which I can talk about later on.
Yep. And what really, you spoke about, it was put in front of you, but what really inspired the district to implement it? You talked about seeing it at a tech conference. Why did you think this is what we need?
So we have really forward-thinking district leadership in Moreno Valley, and they saw how engaging esports can be. And then when COVID hit and we were looking to re-engage students, it was clear that we were onto something, because 95% of human beings, I forget what the stat is, but play video games. And so if we could get them, the argument was pretty simple to make. Get them out of their, and I always over dramatize it, and I'll say, get them out of their dark bedrooms gaming with someone in a foreign country, and instead, some stranger, get them in a room with 25 like-minded peers and a coach who is loving and caring and certificated, and so now you've basically turned a potential negative into a real positive. And it didn't take long for our district leadership to see that and want to pursue it. And we had gains, really from the jump. So we tried to do some scary things right off the bat, and we held our first in-person tournament in short order, and we did it at an alternative high school. That's the type of school where we really want to attract kids. A lot of them are second and third strike kids, and their school doesn't get a lot of attention. District events aren't held there very often. So we went right at them and said, hey, can we host an event here? And we were sort of shocked and not shocked that the kids there were all over it. They were amazing. You want to do this at our school? Yes. And they took over. They became docents, and they created a path bring the dignitaries from the parking lot to the actual event. And they did a lot of the tech setup. And this is before we had really targeted students to do these college and career pathways that now make our bread and butter of our program. But it all started at March Mountain High School in 2020-21 school year. Yeah, so that was what they saw, is that this could really engage kids. And superintendent, we invited all of our brass to all of our events, and our school board. A lot of them are older immigrants, not digital natives like kiddos, and they didn't know what was happening on the screen, on the various screens, but they could see what was happening in the kids' eyes and in their interactions with one another, their interactions with adults, the way that they carried themselves and felt proud of something. It was clear that we were on the right track.
It's incredible. I want to grab some of the data from the which we'll put into the show notes as well for anyone that does watch this, and anything I put out there, your reported data. How has the participation in the esports program affected student attendance? And can you talk us a little bit through, I know you just spoke about the engagement it's bringing, but just in your own words, what have you seen?
So hot off the presses, Sam, you are looking at last year's data, and within last week, we have this year's data. So we're starting to get a longitudinal trend. And before I share that, you asked how I see it, with my eyes, sort of not empirically, but more anecdotally.
Yeah, we
definitely see that the kids involved in our after-school esports programs and our esports classes, because that's something that we've since established both at middle and high school level. These kids, they are plugged in to I guess that's sort of literal, but really figuratively, they are plugged in to their classes and their classmates and their teachers slash coaches. They have skin in the game. They belong, and if they don't show up, something doesn't happen that matters to them. And so the data really is bearing that out. So what we did is, in our student information system, where we track all of our kids, classes, enrollment, attendance, test scores, all that sort of thing. We applied an esports flag to participating students. And what we noticed, we partnered with our County Office of Education, Riverside County Office of Ed, Dr. Nick Chitwood, to be specific, to take this list of students and start to run data analyses on them, because we have a data sharing agreement with them. And it was pretty incredible. The first year that we tracked them was 22-23. And we had about 1,800 students in our program. We were doing tracking on 627 of them, so call it a third. And what the data said is they attended school 7.34 more days on average than non-participants. So that means 7 more days of history, science, math, language arts, all of that. And so we were blown away, and like, what else can we find? And we're trying to poke holes in this. Okay, but and I'll show you how we weren't even trusting of that. But before I do, we did a little calculation. In California, we have what's called ADA, average daily attendance. Essentially, the government gives us, let's say for easy math, $100 a day for when students attend, because that $100 goes for programs that that they're in and helps pay for their different things they're involved in. So because those kids attended school 7.34 more days, we captured $354,000. But you have to remember, that's only for a third of our kids. So if you multiply that by 3, because remember we have about 1,800 kids in our program, well, that's now over $1 million extra that we captured of average daily attendance fund. So if you're a district leader listening, or someone who interfaces with district leaders, especially your chief business official, that's type of that side of the house, then this is really what makes their ears perk up, because the program pays for itself. If you're doing a district level, the engagement, the amount of, depending on how you're in Australia, I'm not sure how it works with that type of thing. So again, we weren't trusting of the data, so we said, well, all right, well, what if these kids were already good attenders? They just were happy campers in school and just engaged and just attended better than the other kids. So we actually did more of a study. We compared them against themselves. And what we found was, still, even for controlling for the different demographics, prior attendance rates, different ethnicities, etc., didn't really matter. Esports participants had a 19.3% lower absence rate than non-participants. Okay, so that was year one. So I'm going to give you the year two. So instead of 19.3 and 7 days, it was way better. It was 9 days.
Wow.
They attended school 9 more days. So again, over $1 million in average daily attendance funds, and their absence rate was 33% lower than non-participants. So different ways to look at the same great data point. We kept poking holes and nothing was leaking out. So pretty happy about that piece.
That's an incredible achievement, and it's something that I'll be definitely wanting to highlight after this. I think the way you explained that was perfect, and I'm not 100% sure how it works in Australia, but there would be some benefits to making sure that your student attendance is up. I'm sure that is a big part of our education system. Can you talk me through? I think this is another really interesting one. You often see in esports sometimes marginalized or students who are often disengaged, and I saw the reduction in suspension rates among esports students was well improved. Can you take me through a similar scenario there? And something else I'd love to throw in there is, what factors do you think contributed to this change?
Sure. So in the first year we ran data, esports participants were suspended 13% fewer days than non-participants. Nice number until you get to this year's data. And it's 44% less, fewer suspension days than non-participants. So that means, again, these kids are in school and they're just part of what they see as a system. And so that's one thing that the listening audience should understand is let me just break something down. There's gaming, which is what it sounds like. So that's you in your front room with your kids or whatever, you're playing Mario Kart and it's fun. You have some popcorn after, then that's it. Okay, so that's your gaming. And in esports, of course, is the competitive side where now there's a trophy there, or you're battling another family down the block. Or now change it to the school setting, it's school versus school gaming competitions, right? That's esports. So what we feel and what we're seeing is what's the game changer when it comes to all the metrics I've been sharing is scholastic esports. And so the difference here is, the kids are sort of brought into the room because they're of their interest and love of video games and for some of them, a lot of them, competition. What keeps them there and gets them really plugged in is the scholastic side. So in the after school club, and again, this is straight from NASEF, you can go study these components at will. These kids when you have a club, you need someone to build the website for your club. You need a marketing team. You need someone to handle streaming and streaming overlays in OBS. You need someone to shoutcast the match. You need someone to plan the event and be the sort of the foreman or the foreperson who is coming up with these little subcommittees to reach out to event sponsors. All these college and career activities that students often have never even sniffed. Certainly not at the middle school level. And maybe not in the high school level, but what we're doing is two things. We're plugging them into something that matters to them. They don't show up, something doesn't happen. And so they have peers who are relying on them to do certain things. And that, for a lot of these kids, is the first time that's ever been the case. And the second thing is we are fast forwarding their skill set. I would say, for your common 17-year-old, the things that they're doing in our program, I didn't do till I was, let's say, 10 years later, when I was in my late 20s. I never talked to a sponsor before to see if we can get a prize pool for an event. I never worked with custodians to figure out, do they get overtime or I don't know, transportation department to arrange busing, to an event. These are things I didn't do till I was an established adult. Yet these kids are doing this at 16, 17, 18 years old. Officially in our school district, they run all our events now. That's the change. Year one, we established we're clubs. Year 3, we have classes, clubs, and they run all our events. We coach them from behind the scenes, and they do have school coaches that have to agree to take part of it, in it as well. But the kids they're pressing all the buttons once they learn how they're pressed. So this is the reason I think that we have such a really motley assortment of students in our program. It's Land of Misfit Toys from the old Christmas special with Burl Ives. It's kids from all over the the educational universe, different shapes, sizes, interests, but they do have one thing in common: is their love of video games. And so that's the other neat part, is a lot of these clicky things that you see, especially at middle and high school, really fall away in the esports classroom, because anybody can sit down and play a game of Smash. Doesn't matter what the person sitting next to you look like, because they all have avatars on the screen. They all have, and they go by their gamer tag and all this. So, it's just a great, leveling of the playing field. We have, special ed students who are commingled, and you would never know it. We had a student panel at our county office in front of hundreds of people. County asked us to bring a student panel out there, and they were the most eloquent group of kids, middle schools, high schools. People from the audience are asking them questions similar to what we're talking about here. They were standing up with a microphone in front of them and just going, really polite and well thought out answers. And I found at the end that 4 out of 6 of them were special ed students that had IEPs for one thing or another, and nobody knew. You just couldn't know. And so again, it's been equalized, mainstream. I told you at the start, it's the golden key to so many different endeavors in the school system.
Time for a quick break, but you can expect more industry insights from Peter like this when we return.
So they'll be surrounded by industry leaders. So just think of the wheels that are turning, and the opportunities that these kids are afforded, just being, again, plugged in to the industry well before anybody listening to this likely has been before. So really, amazing opportunities.
You can use Valor's training platform to bring professional esports into the classroom, and I'm going to show you how in 30 seconds. First up, let's choose the training camp that's right for me. Our platform is inclusive of all experience levels, so there's a range of choices. Here you can see a structured training roadmap. Let's start our first session. Now I can scaffold my esports teams using learning, quizzes, and training. See, wasn't even 30 seconds. You focus on play, we'll do the rest. Sign up for free today at valoresports.com and take your program to the next level.
Now back to the show, where we learn more from Peter about the impact of Moreno Valley's esports program on its students.
We have our top middle school is Badger Springs Middle, grades 6 through 8. And at that school, the teacher there, teacher/coach, her first year, she had one period, elective period of esports, where she taught the different pathways I've been talking about through League of Legends, by the way. And it was so well received at her school by her principal and the parents involved that it expanded to 6 full periods of teaching esports. So across the years, she had a student named Alex, who was, in that first year, it was just kids placed in this brand new elective. They didn't know what they were signing up for. They got placed. But anyway, she got this kid named Alex who was in a lot of trouble very often, to where he actually had to get removed, because there's a lot, the kids have to sign a contract in our district for conduct. Not only it's attendance, behavior and grades, but that behavior component got him removed from her class. So the next year rolled around, and on his own, he approached the teacher and said, Miss Moore, I'd really like to be in your class. I know what I did wrong last year. It's not going to happen again. I want to sign that contract. Anyway, he did that on his own. She was blown away. Of course, yes, of course, you can rejoin the program. He did, and he's since become one of her most reliable students. It still will get in trouble from time to time, but you'll hear him self-regulate. Like he will catch himself about to do the behaviors that were not part of that policy, against policy, and he'll either correct them during, or he will apologize and adjust afterwards. So it's that, maturation process tied with something that matters to him, that is, really super powerful.
That's incredible. Incredible to hear. How has the local community and the parents reacted to the esports program Have you seen an increase in community engagement? What has been the result for the program?
So many answers to that. And I'll start by what we thought would happen year one. I told you that we always kind of we plan for the worst. And so I even imagined like an angry old guy in a rocking chair saying, "What are these kids doing with the video games?" and all that. So we tried to build our program so even someone, of that mindset would have to just take a pause and really understand, what was going on. So um, what we found is none of those, we haven't had any adults come up to us and say, "What's going on? This is ridiculous. My kids are already playing at home." Because when they come on our campus and they see how the kids are engaging with each other and how important it is to the kids and all the scholastic pieces around it, they melt away. And just recently, we have, his name is Ethan. He's a high school senior, just graduated, and he is a sports fan, traditional sports, and new to the school, in Valley View High School, this past year or the year prior, and decided to join esports. And he's a gamer, and he likes it. But it turns out he really liked gaming, but he really liked broadcasting. He really liked organizing things. So fast forward, Ethan was our Overwatch commissioner. He created the rule book. He was in charge of interfacing with coaches to tell them what their schedule was. He reached out in our Discord channel to another student leader at another high school to plan an end of year event that she was hosting. And so you had that, traditional rival schools working together on this end of year project, that was attended by elementary, middle, high school, hundreds of community members. And Josh and I, my colleague and I, and Jessica, a colleague I haven't mentioned yet, Jessica Roque, the three of us just sat back and watched. We're there as needed, but we didn't do any of this. Ethan. Anyway, so back to your question, his mom watched this unfold, and she came up to me on the side and said, "I don't know what you guys did, but at home, he kind of drives us up the wall because he's always talking about sports. But you managed to channel this into something that is productive. And I just really want to thank you." And sure enough, Ethan is applying now that he's graduated, he's going to be one of our first hires. He's going to help assistant coach one of our, again, rival high schools esports program. So
I love that.
Yeah. So talk about a bridge not too far. He's like, I got to go to Vista Del Lago, but it's about the whole, the big picture. So anyway, the parent was so tickled by this whole thing that she gave my colleague Josh and me a framed picture. Just surprised us with this little frame. Oh, I have it on the wall. Where did I put it? Oh, it's right here. Is that right? I don't know if it'll show because I have my.
No, it shows. Yeah. It's got.
So she gave me a framed picture of there's Ethan and myself. I almost got a little choked up. I'm like, he's like, it's just fantastic. So so that's the type of community support that we're seeing.
That's amazing. And I think my partner, my fiance, is a teacher, and she wouldn't be doing it if she didn't love it. And I think that's it's where you do get choked up as a coach. When you do get that appreciation for knowing that you've had an effect, it's an incredible memory. It makes some of the difficult times a little easier to stomach. Which actually leads to a question I would love to ask, which is, what are the lessons you've learned along the way? Challenges particularly that you've learned along the way that you could share with potentially other district leaders or teachers considering a similar program?
Well, one, it can be expensive up front from a district perspective. So that's the scary part of my answer. The not scary part is if you are just a school leader and want to start a school club, it's relatively inexpensive. You can basically start a program for less than the cost of an American football helmet. There, you know, so for us, you just need to start a club, you need a couple of Nintendo Switches, a couple of TVs, some controllers, and a couple games, and you're done. So, but when you're thinking a little larger from a district perspective, yeah, especially if you're thinking the career pathways that I've been describing that require things beyond a switch, then yeah, there's definitely some funding you'll need to identify. You can do it through I don't know Australia funding strings, of course, but there are various ways that districts, especially post COVID, are getting extra funds to re-engage students. So that's one, is to identify the experts in your district that can help you. I didn't know a thing about business. I didn't know how to create a requisition. I didn't know how budgets worked. I didn't know the different strings that could be applied for different purposes. So, but if you're polite and you're excited about something, you can, the different experts in your district will want to help you and understand those answers. And other challenges would be what are you going to say no to? And that was a challenge, but we made it easy because we started with our end in mind, and we created a 3-year strategic plan that said, year 1, we're going to do this, and we have a set of check boxes. Year 2, we're going to maintain what we did in year 1, and then we're going to expand it by doing this. Now, Josh and I, and now Jessica, we only do this part-time. So that would be another challenge for the people listening is you need to basically understand how much time you're willing to put toward it, which will determine what is most important for you to get done. I would create a must-do, may-do list. And so that became our 3-year plan. We had must-dos that had to accomplish, each year. And then may-dos, we would write them down because you're going to hear great ideas. We just say thank you. We'll put that on our roadmap because, lots of great people you're going to interface with, different teachers and students. Oh, students were so funny, especially at the alternative high school I mentioned earlier. They got so involved. They were telling us how we should expand the program. And then Mr. Whitmore, when are you going to get those DLCs for Smash and all these different, like, well, you see, the thing is this.
Yeah. It's
But yeah,
I've definitely heard that one from students. They give some big ideas. So obviously I have passion and excitement. Please continue.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, so those are some of the pieces, and then having that memorialized and timelined, I guess you could say, is a great way for, if you have people above you in the organization who are not fully on board yet, you can say, totally understand it. Here's where we are. Check out this timeline. This is where we're heading. This is the purpose. You always start with the why, Simon Sinek. And again, we've had all these things in place for years and never really had to sort of whip them out and say, don't calm down. Look, we've got a plan, but are we ready?
Yeah. I think the big one for me out of what you just said, and it makes total sense, is which is having that plan, that 3-year plan of, yes, this is what it looks like now. This is what the goal is. Makes a lot of sense. It makes so much sense just to be able to articulate where you're going and why. So we talk about, often esports is pitched for the opportunities around not only student behavior, but around pathways into industry or potentially college in the US. But when you first see it, when it first starts with that Nintendo Switch, there's a long road there before it gets to that place. I think particularly a lot of Australian schools are in that very early stage of, we've got a couple Switches, we've got quite a few kids playing, but the evolution of the program is going to change a lot to allow these players to potentially have opportunities overseas in the US or in other areas. So thank you. I really appreciate that. What are the future goals for the Moreno Valley Esports program? What are you're getting some incredible results. You just shared the data before that's increased. I think it's that number. I was trying to do the math quickly as you spoke about it, but almost tripled around suspensions. Around reducing suspensions. What's the future for your program at this stage? What are you really hoping to achieve in the next coming years?
So several. One is collegiate, and the other is career based. So the collegiate side, what we were able to do is connect with one of our local universities, the University of Redlands. And we now have basically a pathway. There's a director of esports there. So they have a program. And so we can send our kids, they have the competitive kids in our district can now have a local landing spot. And so we want to replicate that. So we have several different collegiate pathways. So in essence, a kid could enter a Moreno Valley Unified Esports program in 5th grade, just be in that environment and start to hear about these different college and career pathway activities I've been describing. Then go to middle school and really delve into them. And then high school, they can be relied on them as part of our district, internal leagues and championships and so forth. And then based on the strength of that, they can get college scholarships to go at the moment to University of Redlands. Now, I'm going to weave that piece into girls in gaming. So the reason I bring that up is we chose University of Redlands to host our all-girls league. And the reason we started an all-girls league and ended up doing a Mario Kart tournament is data. We learned that 45% of gamers in the real world are female. But in our district, it was only 20%, which bothered us, as it should. We don't want just boys town. And we could see it at our in-person events in the first couple of years. Like, man, this place is full of boys. Let's get, And so what we did is we developed, we intentionally made that a year 2 goal. We developed an all girls committee because we didn't want Josh and I to run this thing. That would be inauthentic. So we got female leaders in our district to basically have a steering committee and how we were going to make this an engaging and amazing event for our female players. And so they did. And we bust out teams of 5 girls from elementary, middle, and high school to the University of Redlands. And they battled, and it was amazing. And it was our most well-attended event in the history of our district as far as esports goes. And at the end, you could hear things like the coaches going up to the girls and saying, "Hey, this was great. I know we didn't win or we won or whatever. Are you interested in joining our esports program?" Like, because the idea was, can they just, boys are loud and that this is kind of their jam traditionally. But now the girls had, they saw themselves in the esports program more. And, because of that event, and some other things that we've done, esports, the girls in our esports programs are up, it's 60% this year. They now make up, instead of 20% of our program, they make up 1/3 of our program. And that's just on the strength of last year's, intentional efforts towards that. So really super pleased. So that was one collegiate engagement. We are in the midst of setting up our junior college that's near our district. They have a program, but they don't really have the expertise to take it to the next level. So Josh and I have been coaching them. So again, our kids our graduating seniors have a place to land. We want to expand the different pathways to different colleges so kids can have like a portfolio of options going forward. So that's one on the college side. On the career side, that part's already happening. I mentioned that Ethan is applying for, and at this point probably has earned that assistant coach position at a high school. We also had one of our students apply for and get a job at our local library to run their new esports lair, which is a community event. As it sounds like, what it sounds like, to get kids and adults into the library, which is good for the library because they get more people around, in their establishment and so forth. So that brings us to the next piece. Is this weekend we are working with at this conference called Gamicon. It's a video game development conference, and it's in Palm Springs, California, about an hour east of Moreno Valley. And the proprietor of that event has come to several of our events, and he said, "Hey, would you guys like to showcase, run some tournaments at this event?" And so it was kind of last minute. I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't have money to see if I can get money to bus kids out there. We have great leaders in our district. They said, okay, we'll give you this, and this. So anyway, as he watched us watch the kids start to plan this event, he realized that the professional crew that he had hired alongside our ragtag, group of kids, that they weren't anywhere near the sophistication that he fired that professional group. And he wants our kids to run the entire event, and we get to keep the prize money and all that sort of thing, to go back into esports. And he said he wants us to do it next year going forward. So again, these would be our kids doing I think it's Smash and Mario Kart tournaments at a public video game development conference. So they'll be surrounded by industry leaders. So just think of the wheels that are turning, and the opportunities that these kids are afforded, just being, again, plugged in to the industry well before anybody listening to this likely has been before. So really, amazing opportunities.
And it's just incredible because that would not have happened if they hadn't had that repetition of delivering for themselves in that school environment, which is no different to training in any other, like it might not be training specifically for the game, but training for executing under pressure environments, which, gaming competitions are pressure. They've got to be on time. Thank you so much, Peter. You've been incredible. I just want to finish by asking, how can anyone listening to this learn more about Moreno Valley Esports program, or potentially get in touch with someone from your organization to collaborate or reach out to yourself or your team?
Yeah, so definitely can reach out to me. Email is great. So my email is P as in Peter, Whitmore, WHITMORE @mvusd.net. And we are on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitch. So for Facebook, you can just Google. Most of these are just MVUSD Esports as the handle. I'm just scanning to see if any are different, and they're all the same. So those are the handles on all of that. And on YouTube as well, we record our gameplay for coaches, really. But yeah, so on the normal socials, just Google MVUSD Esports. You can follow us there. And again, I'll give you some resources, Sam, that you can link in your show notes, including
Thank you.
A white paper that really describes in detail last year's data. It won't be updated with the new hot off the presses data I just shared, but definitely will get your listeners started if they want to start a conversation with their district leaders. And then the district level guidebook that shows districts how to get started. And you can, of course, pare it down to the school level. It's all the same. And again, another plug for NASEF. Definitely reach out to them and join them. They're amazing and awesome. So really glad you had me on. This was a lot of fun. Thanks, Sam.
Yeah, thank you, Peter. Thanks very much, and talk again soon.
Peter's journey with Moreno Valley highlights how gaming can transform education. It engages students and it can unlock career paths. What was evident to me was Peter's passion and his willingness to be patient to get the program to where it needed to go, and having the data to back it up and demonstrating how the program can pay for itself. Let's continue to empower the next generation through the power of play, and I hope you can join us on the next Educator Spotlight.